Imagine the two people you trust most in the world turning their backs on you at the same time. In that moment, you feel something in your heart shatter into a million pieces, while your brain desperately tries to convince you it's all a bad dream. Elsa, my wife, and Jade, my best friend. When I opened that door and saw them like that, I realized everything I thought was real had been a lie for a long time. But before I get to that night, let me tell you how it all began. When I met Elsa, for the first time in my life, I felt like I had found someone who was my perfect match. We completed each other, filling in the gaps where the other fell short. The early years of our marriage were flawless. Elsa was always cheerful, kind, and full of life. Her laugh, that laugh made me feel like the luckiest man alive. Her beauty, Elsa's looks were nearly indescribable. Her blonde hair cascaded down her shoulders, and her blue eyes were as deep as the ocean. Her perfectly sculpted facial features carried an elegance that made it impossible to look away when she turned her head. Every day, I felt grateful to have her by my side. No one was like her, and having Elsa made me feel like the happiest man in the world. But looks don't always reveal the truth about a person. That's something I would come to understand far too late. When I returned home, there was a sweet excitement in me. The idea of surprising Elsa brought me a happiness I hadn't felt in a long time. I opened the door slowly, trying to make as little noise as possible. But there was an odd silence inside. It was past 8. Elsa was usually in the kitchen or watching TV by this time. I quietly made my way upstairs. As I walked down the hallway, I noticed our bedroom door was slightly ajar. And then I heard it. Laughter. One of the voices belonged to Elsa. The other, it was familiar, but I couldn't believe it. Jade? I pushed the door open, and in that moment, my entire world crumbled. Elsa stood in Jade's arms, her nightgown half slipped down her body as she looked at me. Her hair was a mess, her makeup smudged but still fresh on her face. Jade's hand rested on Elsa's bare shoulder, his chest glistening faintly with sweat. The panic on their faces was heavier than the scent of betrayal that filled the room. My eyes scanned the room. The bed was a mess, the sheets wrinkled and unmade. On the floor lay a piece of Elsa's lingerie, unmistakably hers. Jade's shirt was half unbuttoned, and the faint smell of cologne reached my nose. My brain struggled to process what I was seeing, but my heart already understood. Elsa's trembling hands clutched at her nightgown, trying to pull it up. That small, frantic movement alone was enough to make my stomach churn. My eyes instinctively moved to Jade's neck. There, faint but visible, was a smudge of Elsa's lipstick. It screamed the truth of what had happened. For a moment, my legs felt like they were nailed to the floor. My gaze shifted between Elsa's bare shoulder and Jade's guilty eyes. Their intentions were obvious, and every second in that room, in that bed, weighed on me like a lifetime. Finally, Elsa broke the silence with a shaky voice. Matt, I can explain. But no words could ever justify what I had just seen. What are you going to explain, Elsa? I asked, my eyes darting between her and Jade. My heart was pounding out of my chest, but my voice came out as cold and hard as stone. What are you two doing? No, don't answer that. The real question is, why? Jade took a step forward. Matt, listen, calm down. This was a mistake, he said, raising his hands defensively. His attempt to appear composed only fueled the fire inside me. A mistake? I said, my voice dripping with venom. Did you accidentally fall into her arms? Did you accidentally spend hours in my bed with her? Elsa clutched her chest, her eyes filling with tears. Matt, please, I made a mistake. Just a moment of weakness. Is it so hard to forgive me? She cried, tears streaming down her face. A mistake? I repeated, laughing bitterly. But it wasn't a laugh. It was the sound of a man standing on the edge of a breaking point. I turned to Jade and punched him square in the face. He stumbled back, collapsing to the floor as Elsa screamed. Matt, "Stop it, please," she shouted, but I ignored her. "You're no friend of mine, Jade. You're nothing," I said, glaring at him, his terrified face barely registering to me anymore. As I walked out of the house, Elsa's sobs echoed behind me. "Matt, please don't leave. Don't let me go." But I knew in that moment, this story was over. Sitting in my car, my hands trembled as my phone buzzed. A message from Elsa. "Matt, I'm so sorry for everything. Losing you will be the biggest regret of my life." I read the message, paused for a moment, and then I deleted it, as if erasing both Jade and Elsa from my life. Because once trust is broken, no matter what happens, it can never be the same again.